want one. Because this is the type of thing that requires leadership. Whether or not the U.S. federal government under Trump would have acted to bring down emissions, well, that's neither here nor there. It's probably not is the answer. No is the answer. So he had to pull out for that reason. But it's about leadership. Does he want to be a leader on the world stage? And I think he's clearly signaled with this. The answer is no.
Well, and as Ali Velshi points out, Joyce, that speech by Cohen, which basically says we do not view the world as a community of nations. We view it as a series of competing interests, and we have our interest at stake first. How profound a shift is that for the U.S.?
Well, it is a big shift for the U.S. You know, he is going to weaken America's position in the world. That is no doubt. And in fact, even his daughter has been advising him not to pull out of Paris. But having been at NATO and at the G7, we knew, we could feel it, that this was going to be the American stand. He didn't want to say it right away. He left saying, see you guys later. I'll tweet in the week. You'll find out what I think. Right. We all knew that. The question now, going forward, is, okay, America pulling out, Paris still has some heft, but what if other countries start pulling out of Paris? It's a little bit like, take the example of Brexit. Britain pulling out of Brexit, out of Europe, okay, they can withstand the blow. Another country pulling out of the EU, will the EU even be able to withstand that blow? So the question now is, who's next? Will there be another country pulling out? And if another country does pull out, is this the unraveling of Paris?
Right, and Ali, from an economic argument, it was interesting to see Donald Trump make the economic argument that the Paris Climate Accord is a disaster for the U.S.
You know, there are costs. There's no question. Even in Canada, there are costs to reducing carbon emissions. There may also be remarkable benefits, particularly from technologically engaged countries. So there are a lot of options for America, and particularly when it comes to energy utilities. You know, they can bake it round or they can bake it square, but they bake it for 50 years when they open up a new plant. So what they would like is to have policy that is going to withstand the test of time. The concern here is that the next president of the United States may say, hey, we're back in and we've got to meet these climate goals, and now business is going to have to reshuffle the deck. So they may like it or not like it, but they want some consistency, and that is one thing you do not get from the Trump administration.
Stephanie Levis, let me talk about this bailout. Now the Trump tab is up to $860 million for this package for softwood lumber. This has happened before. 15 years ago, there was $100 million. But this is a pretty big number. And people are wondering, wait a second, now it's real. Should the Canadian government retaliate? And does this start escalating a kind of trade war even before the NAFTA negotiations begin?
It's certainly an opening salvo, I would argue, the NAFTA negotiations, because it signals on the part of the Canadian government what measures they may or may not be willing to take in the event that things don't swing their way. The question then becomes, how many industries are the federal Liberals prepared to bail out? I mean, are we going to go with pharmaceuticals? Are we going to start bailing out IP? At what point do they say, what's negotiable and what was, oh no, we'll just let that go, like, for example, dairy and eggs in TPP, right, in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, right, where they said, well, okay, we'll sign, but we'll compensate the farmers. So what line are they going to walk going into those negotiations?
Joyce.
Well, let's write another check on the back of taxpayers. It is. Let me play devil's advocate here, right? Because obviously our best maternal instincts are, let's help these people. That's what we all think. We're Canadian. We want to help, right? But at which point, and I agree with Stephanie here, at which point do we stop squeezing the lemon and saying, okay, first of all, this is not Donald Trump, because it happened under other presidents of the United States. This is not the first dispute we've had over lumber. So let's not blame it on Donald Trump. This is a federal government bailout.
If we don't bail them out and give them some dignity, at least for having some kind of jobs, we'll have to bail them out in welfare and bail them out in other ways. So there are costs there, however we do it. And I think what we're seeing here that's beginning to hurt us is where the ideological divide between the United States, between Trump, of course, and us, is starting to hit us in the economy, and we're going to see a lot more of that.
All right, I got 30 seconds. Ali Velshi, last word to you. We're just trying to see where all this is headed. We are months away from the renegotiation of NAFTA. We're just bailed out the softwood lumber. Where is this going? What does it tell Canada about the President of the United States?
I'm not sure. Far be it for me to say anything contrary to my old boss, Craig Oliver, who I love being on with. I will say that I'm not sure there's that much ideology behind Trump's actions on softwood lumber. As we've said, this has been going on for hundreds of years. The issue here is this is Trump's way of negotiating. He pulls something out, he threatens to rip something up, he imposes something, and it, in theory, is supposed to get everyone to the table. He said at the end of his very dark climate speech that he's willing to renegotiate. He's saying that kind of stuff with NATO. So I think this has got less to do with ideology and more to do with the way Donald Trump operates.